6:09 p.m. Roll call, please.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Here.
President Affelt?
Present.
I understand Joy may be coming, and the student rep has been ill. Probably won't be here tonight.
Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Unless it's cached in your browser. I'll try.
All right. Any changes to the agenda?
Good evening. No changes. Thank you.
All right. Public comment.
Okay, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in this room, and the Pledge of Allegiance just happened, and I heard one voice say, "Under God." Interesting. That's a pledge that we should dispense with here at the school district. It's a loyalty oath, as I've said it before. We're trying to teach our children how to be, how to think critically, engage and use critical thinking skills, and the loyalty oath is you're dispensing with the critical thinking skills when you take the loyalty oath. It's an un-American thing to do. We're not legally required to do it, and so I don't think we should do it. I think we should just stop doing it. It just teaches a really bad lesson. Teaches a lesson that of a really bad authoritarian obedience lesson to our children that we shouldn't be teaching. We don't legally, as I said, once again, we don't legally have to do it. So I can see really no compelling reason why we're doing that. And the under God part is especially odious. I heard one out of however many people in this room are willing to utter those words. And so since the board itself is not willing to say the oath, why are you asking us to do it? So I think you should just get rid of it. But that's not why I'm here tonight. I'm here tonight to talk about something that happened in November of last year. And that is there was an illegal Brown Act violation meeting that happened in the superintendent's office. One of our school board members, Mr. Christian Patz, brought it to everyone's attention. And for that, he was soundly and roundly criticized and attacked by his colleagues. So it's pretty unseemly to see, the lack of comity from the people that we elect, the elected officials, to be attacking a fellow board member. That's pretty unseemly. But it's especially bad when it turns out that those that were doing the attacking were subsequently proven to be wrong. So now I speak to Don Merriam. Don, we elected you. The people of Emeryville elected you. We thought you would be a good addition here. You engaged in a personal attack against your colleague, Mr. Patz. I think that's an unseemly thing to do. You thought it was a prudent thing to do, but never mind that. You were proved to be wrong. Your attack against Mr. Patz was proved to be wrong because the board president, Mr. Rubio, admitted that there was, in fact, a Brown Act violation, the very thing that Mr. Patz was complaining about. So all your righteous indignation leveled at your colleague, Mr. Patz, was unfounded. So I would like you here and now to apologize to your colleague. I think it would go a long way towards, repairing the damage that has been done to this body by the lack of comity in this incident and other incidents. So I think you were wrong. You should, admit that you were wrong, I think. Because, when you make a mistake, you should admit your mistake and then tell us how you're going to plan on not making that mistake in the future and just apologize. So I think you should turn to Mr. Patz right now and say, Mr. Patz, I'm sorry. I should not have said that about you, and it was not proper especially since I was wrong in making my, my attack against you.
You're out of time.
So I think you should do that now for the benefit of the school district. Thanks. You can do it right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Mr. Donahue, any other public comment? Oops. All right, seeing none, welcome. No public comment from the youth. Hello, Ms. Ash. We are on to reports. We have an ETA report or a CSEA report. We don't have a student representative report. Superintendent's report.
Yes, good evening. I'd like to first report out that we have a student at our high school who has received a $2,000 scholarship for college from CFW, and the student is Angel Brown. So we just got that notice, and we're excited for Ms. Brown. And I think at some point we'll have them do a presentation of that here in front of the board. Just the other two items for my report to the board. I would like to report out that we had a great COC meeting last week with members who oversee the Measure J fund for the district, and it was very well run, and it was a very effective meeting, and so we're happy with that, and Mr. Baker was there as well. So I just want to report out and update the board on that recent meeting. And the last thing I would like to report out on is that this morning, Ms. Sue and I were in Sacramento for the annual release of the governor's budget to gather as much information as we can regarding the state of the economy and what we think is coming and the outlook as we go along. So those are the three things I just wanted to update the board on in public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Superintendent. In terms of board president's report, really just want to call attention to a few items on the state landscape that are occurring that would be of interest to the district. Last month, somewhat unexpectedly, Congress quickly reached resolution on a compromise to reauthorizing the No Child Left Behind Act, and now and passed a new reauthorization of the Elementary Secondary Education Act. So No Child Left Behind is being phased out. The President signed into law in December, and the state of California, which has been working diligently to revise its own public school accountability system, is now in the process of figuring out how to incorporate and integrate the local control funding formula accountability system that was passed, the multiple measures, 8 state priorities that we've begun to be implementing. There's an accountability component to that too, and to figure out how to hold districts accountable for improvement, continuous improvement on those 8 state priorities. Well, now we have a new federal act. It's called the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA, and that it's largely gives a lot of flexibility to states to set their own standards and establish their own accountability systems, but there are some guardrails or parameters that states have to operate in, and California is figuring that out. So I spent most of the day at the state board meeting as part of the half the board meeting today was on the federal and the state accountability systems and how that's going to be integrated. So we should see by September, the September board meeting, a new proposed version of a state accountability system, and in 2017, maybe even late 2016, a new state plan for how we're going to comply with the federal act. So those are some interesting developments on the landscape for all of us to be paying attention to. Secondly, on another matter I'm involved in, which is an important piece of litigation against the state of California, it's a lawsuit, the Campaign for Quality Education versus California, which is asserting that the state is unconstitutionally underfunding our public school system and not keeping up and supporting the system of public schools as the Constitution calls for, in accord with the system the state itself has established, which is a system that expects every student to know and be able to meet Common Core state standards. We've been waiting in our litigation for 3 years for the Court of Appeal to set an argument on the case, and recently that was set. And on January 27th, the Court of Appeals in San Francisco will be hearing our appeal as to whether or not there is a case to be had where one can claim the state needs to adequately fund its public school system. There's a companion case that's been brought by CSBA called Robles-Wong v. California that's been joined, and the two cases are going to be heard together. Whoever wins or loses is likely to appeal to the state Supreme Court, so we will, this is just one step along the way, and it's sad that it's taken 3 years just to get a hearing date, but there you have it. That's another important piece on the education landscape. That concludes my President's report, and we are now on to
Can I ask
the
some
consent calendar.
clarifying or some questions? I was hoping you would report out. Apparently, you presented at the principal's coffee last week and had some really interesting things to say, but I don't like to hear things secondhand, so I was hoping you could share with us what you shared at the principal's coffee.
Yeah, that's not part of my report. I think your question is as you continue to ask, and it's a fine question to ask, what are we going to be doing with ECCL and Annie Yates, and we will be figuring that out in the first part of the year. I can share with you and the public that we're hoping in one of the meetings in February to have our next study session and focus on the next stage of the questions on the Annie Yates ECCL issue. Obviously, we need to figure that out before we get too much further into the school year. So that's what I can share with you at this point. And I'm happy to talk to anyone who would like to talk with me about that.
I mean, I was told you presented a very eloquent plan and formed it in that phrase, not just sort of, we're going to have a meeting in February, but that you actually laid out sort of what your plan was. And seems to me that, instead of hearing about what you're doing at work, it'd be kind of nice in the President's report to hear what's going on within the school district.
Yeah, I don't think that's an accurate description. There was a question about what's going to happen and when are we going to do it and what's going on, and I explained there was sort of a question of why are we even asking this question, because I thought we decided it's going to be K-12 at the other site, and I said no, there are people in the community who would like to have that question investigated, and under my leadership as board president, I've been open to having that question investigated, and so we're investigating it.
In February?
I don't think I even said exactly when, but I said this in the coming months.
Yeah, that varies different from what people heard, so I think we may want to revisit that sooner. But okay, thank you.
On to the consent calendar. Are there any items to be pulled from the consent calendar? No. I had a correction to the minutes, so I'm going to pull the minutes. Why don't we vote on the item 6.1, the warrants, and 6.3, personnel actions. Do we have a motion on those items?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Brown? Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affel?
Yes. Okay, on the minutes, my correction was just on the wording of the minutes of item 8. Do you have in front of you, Ms. Tamery? Yeah. So the item 8 the motion was a motion. Item 8, the motion was a motion, quote, motion to not create any board committees, unquote. That was the motion that was made and seconded.
So let me repeat this motion to not create any board committees.
Correct.
Okay.
So that would be my proposed amendment, and I would move that we amend the proposed minutes to say motion to not create any board committees. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Brown? Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affel?
Yes. Okay, I think that takes care of our consent items. We're on to the discussion action items. The first item is amendment to the Santa Fe lease. Superintendent?
Yes, good evening. The purpose of this item is to ask for the board to approve the amendment to the lease between Emery Unified and the Oakland Unified School District for the use of the Santa Fe Elementary School site. As you know, we had some conversations and negotiations with Oakland Unified. We do appreciate their allowing us to be there a little longer as we wrap up the construction. So, and they have approved this. We wanted to bring it back to you for your approval based on the amount of money.
This item, let's see, is now an attachment. It wasn't an attachment a few days ago, so maybe you can just walk us through it and the public, Superintendent? And I understand there was a...
I'm sorry, say that again.
There was a technical snafu? Or
There was a
is it
technical
something else?
snafu. It
Yeah.
ended up being in the packet, so if you
Oh.
were an email, the packet was there, but we did not have it
Okay.
attached on the Agenda Online website. That's correct. So this is a month-to-month lease that we're asking that is extended up until June 1st. We are asking to stay there longer so we can complete the construction of the high school. We do believe we'll be out by May 1st. However, of course, rain is the one concern we have. The agreement here is that we will continue to pay Oakland Unified for the lease of the premises. That amount would be $62,500 per month. And Oakland Unified is really pressing hard to have us out of there by May 1st. And if we're not out by May 1st, they will allow us to stay until June 1st, but the rent is increased for that last month, or at a higher rate, I should say.
I'm sorry, can you clarify what the rate would be if we stay in May?
If we stay in May, the rate is $5,000 per day,
In addition to the 62,000 or in lieu of?
in lieu of for that month.
So we'd pay $155,000 if we stayed in May.
If we were there for the full month of May, that would be correct.
And do we have any offsets in place so that we can recoup that money from Turner if they're delaying us that long?
Well, we anticipate that we'll be out of the high school and, out of the Santa Fe site before May 1st. Turner Construction, as part of their contract, which I think is usual or normal for construction companies and projects, would not be accountable for the weather if there are 20 days of rain in the next month or so. So that is my understanding.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I realize that we're hitting the rainy season, which is why the school was supposed to be done back in October, and I know there was a pipe issue. And we were also supposed to be into the gym this month as well, which again was supposed to open in September. or something along those lines. So why would it be that we want to enter into a $155,000 agreement when we know we're always late, even on anticipated things, and we're entering the rainy season now? I mean, I'm really concerned that this is really, I have no expectations that Turner will be finished by September 1st, let alone June 1st, with any portion of the building.
Member Pats, I don't think that I stated or that myself nor anyone here at the district wants to enter into to be there in May at that cost.
Right. Our kids need to be somewhere. Let me rephrase that. So it seems to me that if we have to be out of there by May 1st, we should be planning now. And I guess my question is, what is our intention if when we're not able to occupy the site on May 1st? That also seems odd to me. There's only a couple of weeks of school left at that point. So I guess those are my questions, but we can, so those are my questions.
I'm sorry, maybe could you repeat that last? I want to make sure I understand your question so I can try to answer it. I missed it.
So do we have a better plan in place than we're going to spend $155 million for 1 month's rent, which granted is the going rate in Emeryville, but still seems excessive to me?
No rudeness intended, 155,000, you mean?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
Did I say million?
Yeah.
I apologize.
It's
the
not that
Powerball.
you would
Let's
be
put everything
not that
up.
you would be dramatic, remember, Pat?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay. No, right now, based on having the need for 13 classrooms in our community, there is not, to my knowledge, another cost-effective or as cost-effective place for us to be between January and April the 30th.
Okay.
Don?
Superintendent Rubio, regarding the move in April, May, that's when it looks like it's going to be scheduled. Have you made arrangements to facilitate that move as far as organization, staff awareness, student awareness, made sure that they are on board with the move and kind of build an excitement towards that?
We are continuing to work on that. That did start over the holiday break, so it was part of the community update that we sent out. We started to put that out there. We actually spelled that out in that update as well. We have now, Swinnerton has now put out for bid a contract for the movers. We've gotten responses, I believe, already for that. And we had actually a meeting this week here with the full cabinet in terms of planning, and we are continuing to flush this out with Swinnerton.
And then just to follow up with that, have you introduced the staff to the new building as far as timetables, when they can get into the building prior to the actual occupancy?
We have not specifically done that in terms of, you mean before May 1st? Which day they could be able to get in there? Is that what you're saying?
Basically getting people used to the space, getting them to know where things are at, basically getting them familiar with the new facility.
No, not yet. We have not timelined that yet.
Since we have Mr. Baker here, I think you're sitting behind the projector there. Can you come up and just give us a sense of how solid May 1st looks at this point, and what sort of weather contingencies we could absorb and still hit May 1st?
So we actually had a scheduling meeting with Turner just late yesterday about this issue. The current schedule, their current schedule shows substantial completion, which is when you can take occupancy, of May 3rd. The current contract date, which when we had our site utility issue and our East Bay Mud issue in San Pablo, we granted them an extension until April 27th. So it's about where it needs to be. They're going to work on getting it to where it contractually is. We're looking at two things. They're going to do some poll scheduling to see if they can bring that in. Secondly is we discussed, all of us are concerned about the weather. It's a relatively simple thing to build, so we don't foresee anything that would impact that schedule other than weather. And weather could impact it, as Mr. Pats mentioned. The consensus from that meeting was that I would like to go to council to request a Saturday work plan, similar to what we did on the gym, that will help us bring back time in, help us catch up on time to mitigate possible weather delays. That would be kind of an insurance policy against every Saturday work day you pick up one day. If you do 5, you pick up a week. I think it's fairly cost effective. It's less expensive per Saturday for the premium time than it is for this $5,000 a month rent. So I think that we're working on that. We just formulated this yesterday. We will work with the city and district to formulate that plan. We'll report back to the board at the next board meeting, and also about what the timeline would be to go to council for that. But we think that that's probably the best insurance policy against impact from rain, is to do that. We had a successful Saturday work plan for the gym. We had the community was involved. We contacted community members, neighbors every Saturday to check in with them. We had some hiccups the first day with backup beepers on trucks, which we were able to then mitigate. But the rest of the Saturdays went with a hitch. And so we think the community, I think, has confidence in the ability for us to do a Saturday work plan. We would need to go to council, though, to have the waiver of their noise ordinance for those Saturdays. But if we were to work between now and May 1st every Saturday, that's 3.5 months, really, which picks up about 20 days, 20 work days, which is about 4 weeks if we had dry weather. So I think that's the best insurance policy we have against weather delays. If we get weather, we will have rain days. That structure is built outside. It's an exterior deck, an exterior elevator. It's all exterior construction. So that's what we think. So 2 things: we're looking at doing some pull scheduling to see if we can tighten up that schedule, but also I think it would be prudent to do a Saturday work plan. They're always optional. We can not do them if we don't need them, but that would allow us to pick up time, lost days to weather.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't the city grant us the Saturdays to get the gym open on time, and that still didn't happen?
They granted us to get the gym complete. The gym itself was complete. The problem is the exterior sidewalk. We had to do that last, and the rain. We had 11 rain days in 2 weeks, which delayed the sidewalk completion. So the gym is complete. We don't have ADA accessibility because the sidewalk, we do now because the sidewalks have been poured. But that's what caused the delay in actually being able to legally use the gym, is our sidewalk work was delayed because of rain. All the more reason to consider something like that for the building D deck structure, so we don't realize impacts like that.
Mr. Baker,
So
where are we?
I'm-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so the answer was we didn't get it open on time, right? Like, it's not ADA accessible.
The
It's
Saturday
the same thing
work,
as
the
saying the
Saturday
checks in the
work
mail.
plan was to get the gym done by the last week in December.
Right.
Everything was complete with the exception of the sidewalk, and the sidewalk was impacted by rain, so we couldn't get that sidewalk done. The
Right.
Saturday work plan, that Saturday work plan did not anticipate or account for rain days,
Uh-huh.
which we then unfortunately did have.
I see. So the gym that was months late got impacted by rain and did not meet the most recent target date. I don't know why that's so difficult to say, so I will say it. But I'm curious, have we hit any target dates at all on this project? Because I think we've been delayed on everything: the pool, the gym, the entire project, and now we're giving ourselves a window somewhere between 3 days before May 1st and 3 days after May 1st. My math might be a little off there, but we're sort of saying, if we get Saturdays, which, again, I don't know why the council would grant us Saturdays, given that it didn't help us last time. So
It helped us tremendously last time, actually.
your definition of success and mine, I think, are a little bit
Okay,
different.
but it
I-
would've-
I-
okay, fair enough.
We're not in the gym, right? I couldn't go into the gym today.
Yes, you can now.
I was,
As of today, you can.
as of today.
Right,
Okay. And today is the 13th.
that's correct.
So we were within 13 days. Excellent. So I guess that's a very narrow window when we are expecting what I've
Agreed.
heard referred to as the Godzilla El Nino. So I guess, to me, I think that's a very narrow window. But we're not on a discussion. I'm still asking questions. So my question was simply that.
Right.
Have we hit any target dates? Have we
The
been
only,
on
the only,
time once?
the only target date we have had has been the gym.
We had a pool date, we had a gym
No,
date.
the pool date was, remember, the pool was added work to the project.
Okay. And I thought, wasn't the site supposed to open for the high schoolers in fall, not spring?
No, that's not correct. The original contract, the contract date, the Turner's contract, the original contract date was for the high school to be complete December 29th, I think.
Okay, so again, we did, that's another date we missed, correct?
Again, yeah,
I mean, it's
to
a simple
clar-
yes or no. It's either open on the 29th or it's not, and we gave them an extension.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm not asking complicated questions. I think it's a reasonable question to ask if we've missed any dates, and you say no.
That's not correct. I said the only original contract date which has now passed
Mhm.
was the high school date. Let me clarify. The original gym completion was October.
Okay.
The original contract date, the original high school contract date was the end of December.
Okay,
So we did miss those dates. Now, if I may, again, the reason for the high school delay had to do with the site
Right.
utility work in San Pablo Avenue, which
Yeah.
I reported, I think, probably every month for the last year. And then the gym, the primary gym delay was due to having to seismically reconstruct the roof because it was not built per original plan and spec once we took the roofing off of that.
Mhm.
Those are the two things which caused delays to those two contract completion dates.
Okay.
no, we've jumped to two now from one.
You are correct. There are
Right, so-
three, there are
and
three
I would add a
dates.
third, 'cause
There are
we
three
missed
dates
the
in total.
extension
The
of the
third
gym.
date is the substantial completion of the K through 8 school, the project,
Mhm.
which is June 1st.
Right. Okay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Baker. Any more questions for Mr. Baker? Superintendent, you say that Oakland Unified has approved this
Yes, their board has approved it.
because it's not signed by them.
No, this is the original copy we sent over. We were having difficulty getting with some communication with their attorney this week, but we did get indication from them in an email that it was approved.
Okay, and do we have any alternative options at this point?
We do not at this point, no.
Yeah.
This is the best option that we have.
Okay. Public comment on this item.
First of all, I'd like to say, for the record, school board member Miriam chose not to apologize to school board member Pats as I requested. He considered and he decided against apologizing to him for making false accusations. So it sort of shows us that he doesn't have a sense of that there should be comity or collegiality.
Do you have a public comment on this item, Mr. Donahue?
Yes, this is about this
No,
item.
this is not about this item.
Yes, it is about it.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is, absolutely. So please stop interrupting. Mr. Merriam doesn't have a sense of collegiality, and, it's a dysfunctional board, and Mr. Merriam is exacerbating that. So that's unfortunate, especially since, we elected you to not do that. Now, to talk about Mr. Baker's comments to you all just now. Do you get a sense that he's working for us, or do you get a sense that he's working for Turner? So, did we hear like some excuses for Turner presented by Mr. Baker, whom we're paying over $1 million for his services? Or does it seem like he's got our back? And the answer to that, in my I think, is no. He doesn't have our back. And it's very clear by the little back and forth between Mr. Pats and Mr. Baker that he's really working for Turner. But the thing is, we're paying him more than $1 million to represent our interests. And so, I really think you should start representing our interests. You should tell us, instead of making excuses for Turner being late, you should tell us, yes, Turner is late. It makes me feel bad. It makes me feel like I'm a sucker for having given you over $1 million. I expect my interest to be upheld if I'm paying you over $1 million. Then I'd like to remind everybody here that Mr. Rubio, the superintendent, assured us all last fall that the high school is finished. It's a whole semester late, but it will be finished in time for the it's for the spring semester of 2016. But there's a little problem, he said, that had come up, and that is that the elevator is not going to be quite ready So we won't pass ADA. We could have classes, he said, hold classes. This is what he said last fall. We could hold classes except for this little ADA problem, so that means we're legally not allowed to do it. Can't let students in there. But yet, I went to the high school day before yesterday, took pictures. It's going to be in my blog, the Emeryville Tattler. You can check it out. And the entire north and west elevation is virtually gone. There's no wall there at all. The windows are on the other elevations are gone.
You're out of time.
So there's obviously no carpet. There's no FF&Es. Mr. Rubio did not relay the information accurately when he said it's all going to be finished except for the elevator. That's false. It's largely not complete as of right now. Entire walls missing, exterior walls.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment on this item? Okay. Discussion? Any discussion?
I'm sorry, can I go back to my original question? It's May 1st or June 1st that we start paying the penalty?
May 1st.
Because I'm looking at the OUSD website, and the signed contract from their board says June 1st.
That would be very good news for us if that's the case.
Yeah. Before we vote on this, can you investigate and find out the actual date?
It's right here. It does say June 1st.
Well, hold on a second. Let me just.
It's the penalty.
No, he actually can you. Now, that's interesting. So, communication is always interesting. If the Oakland Unified School District changed that, that would be news to us. So, it didn't help that we didn't hear from them this week on this. So, I do need to find out if that's the case or not. How would the board like to proceed? Would you be open to an amendment to approving it based on either? Because I don't. I mean, if that's the case, and I believe what Mr. Pats has in front of him is accurate, that is certainly good news to us.
Well, we'd like to approve the version that they approved.
Yeah. So we can go ahead and should we bring this back?
Is there any urgency in our having approved this tonight? We also have a special meeting on the 21st.
Mr.
So-
Baker, I don't think there's any harm in us bringing this back. We were unsuccessful in hearing back from the Oakland Unified Attorney to get their version.
It really is up to the board. It doesn't really impact construction per se. It's up to the board to approve the terms of the lease.
They're going to finish when they finish, no matter
No,
what the
no,
contract says.
That's not my point. It's not germane to the Turner contract, so I can't really comment on that.
So I would say let's bring this back on the 21st.
Yes.
Can we
Sounds
do
good.
that?
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Member Pats, for noticing that. I would have never anticipated, I was just sharing with Member Pats, that they would have changed that without telling us. So that's great, actually.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, we're on to the next item. 7.2, Superintendent.
Thank you. Good evening again. This is an amendment to the Inspector of Record contract. Mr. Baker is here to explain this to us. The purpose of this item is to consider approval of a change order as required now by the Department of State Architecture's DSA's field manager. Mr. Baker.
Okay, so as I think the board last year approved a contract to TYR Incorporated to provide inspector of record services. The Division of State Architect requires there be certified inspectors of record on all school sites. They act as the state's inspector in the field. They are typically retained by the districts themselves. However, they answer to the DSA field manager and DSA office in Oakland. The number and level, they have different levels of DSA inspectors, 1, 2, and 3, and the number and the length of staffing on the site is solely the call of the DSA field manager. The way that it works is that once we have retained a firm, we meet with DSA, and they assign inspectors for different portions of the work. The portions of the work that they were assigned to, one inspector was assigned to site work and the gym. The other inspector was assigned to the 4 new buildings. We then entered in the contract with TYR, which we took to the board, which we assumed we'd have one inspector all the way through the project, and then an additional inspector that we saw coming off the project in October the originally scheduled completion of the gym. Now that we've achieved gym completion, we've talked to the DSA field manager over the last couple months to plan for reducing and having just one inspector and not two inspectors. That DSA field inspector has said, no, we still need two inspectors. We asked what the length of that would be. That field manager says, I'll determine what that is based on the progress of the work. We've been, I think, very professionally saying we think that we don't need that inspector, et cetera, but we're not successful in convincing them. We have been budgeting for this additional time in the project budget for quite some time now. So what we're doing tonight, and in my reports on contingency, that number has been included in the budget. So there's no change to what we've been planning on this in case we needed it. So what I'm doing tonight is I'm asking for really kind of the worst case scenario. This is a time and materials basis. We review invoices every month. We're going to go back to the field manager when the pool is complete. And his argument is the pool was added, so you have to have the inspector for that gym there longer, for 2 months longer. So in March, when we reach that milestone, we'll make the request again. I think we have a really good argument then because the portion of work that field manager assigned the inspector will be done. And then if he still feels as though in his sole opinion, unfortunately it's his sole opinion, that we still need two inspectors, when all the buildings are complete except for the K-8 school in May, we're going to make the request again. But just to be sure, what I'm asking for tonight is for the board to approve to a maximum amount to have both inspectors beyond the project through July, which is the current completion date of the K-8 school. We don't anticipate needing that much. I could come back 2 more times if needed to extend it. This is more. What I'm asking is to approve that maximum amount. We will certainly do our best to minimize these costs to the district and convince the DSA field manager we don't need with the second inspector. We'll go back after the pool is complete, and then back again when all the buildings except the K-8 school are complete, and make that request again. I'm confident that at one of those milestones we'll be able to shed an inspector, but that's what this is sort of again the worst case scenario, needing both those inspectors through July, which is the completion date of the K-8 school.
I think you said somewhere in here that it's a change order be funded by the budgeted owner contingency. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, again, in the project budget there is contingency. There's owner contingency, not the Turner contingency. And this would be, it is currently included, it's budgeted. Contingency has been budgeted for this for the last several months. So the funds are in the project budget. We would not need additional funding to pay for this. It would not be contingency that we'd plan on using for some other purpose.
So, because I thought that contingency had been allocated. And
Correct.
it sounds like you're saying yes, but this was part of the allocation we've
Right,
done
correct.
to date. We've already
Correct.
figured this in.
Right.
So if, in fact, you're able to convince them that we don't need 2 inspectors all the way through July, then there'll be some left over in
That's
the
exactly right.
owner
Correct.
contingency.
Correct.
Okay.
And that second inspector is about $14,000 a month. So if we have convinced them we don't need in the last 4 months, that would be $56,000. If we don't need them for the last 2 months, it's $28,000 that would go back into unallocated contingency.
Okay. Other questions for Mr. Baker?
I do have a question. Mr. Baker, I know in the process of building a school, the inspection for these, or the scope of the work for these inspectors usually tapers down because the type of inspection isn't warranted per DSA's requirements. It's more adherence to the plans and specifications, fit, finish, and along those lines. Is he, if at all possible, as much influence on DSA to get the inspector off the site, because it's redundant in a sense, and we're paying for something that isn't necessary. And I think if you do talk to Mr. Jeru with DSA, that he would accompany that situation.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. We've been, we have met with, in fact, actually the inspectors that actually technically work for the district. It's in, you know, they're contract with the district, although they serve at the pleasure of DSA. Those inspectors and ourself and the architect of record, DSK, all have made the argument, made the request. I believe that really the main issue right now is that the pool technically is part of Building E, and so that continues for 2 more months, and that's probably the reason why. I mean, he actually said that. But he had said this job really should have 2 inspectors, kind of a blanket statement. Unfortunately, the field managers often say things like that, but I agree with you, and we will be making an even stronger argument upon the pool completion in March so that we can reduce that scope.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Any public comment on this item? Discussion? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? I'll second. Can we have a roll call, please? Roll call, Ms. Tamer.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Brown? Yes. Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affendt?
Yes. Okay, the item passes unanimously. On item 7.3, Superintendent.
Yes, good evening. The purpose of this item is for the board to receive an update and consider approval of a resolution authorizing the deposit and withdrawal of district monies in the local agency investment fund, and to authorize the superintendent and director of fiscal services to both deposit or withdraw monies and execute and deliver all the documents necessary to be able to effectuate the purposes of these transactions. Ms. Dorsu is here this evening, who can answer any questions about this. If you like, Dorsu, would you come up just in case the board has any questions for you?
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Sue.
Yeah.
How are you?
Pretty good.
I did have some questions about this. How much money are we talking about investing in this fund, and what have we been doing with these monies to date?
I believe back in 2010, Emery actually moved 20 million to LIFE, LAIF. And then right now, because right now we are leading the cash in the building fund to, you know, support the purchases and all those expenditures. So that's the reason why we need to move the $20 million back to the book. I believe right now, as of June 30th, 2015, we do have $20,240,000 in the fund right now, sitting with that local investment agency. And what we are doing actually here is the resolution that's sitting with LIFE is actually with Mark Bonet and the prior superintendent, Deborah Lindo. What we are doing in here is only updating the authorized personnel on the resolution. So then in order for us to move forward to moving the money back to our book.
Yeah, well, that wasn't clear to me.
We're almost updating the signature cards, you might say. So this money, this $20 million, we realize has been in this fund gaining some interest. You're not legally allowed to earn too much interest on this kind of money. That $20 million was moved, we learned back in 2010, and we can't move it back from the agency until the agency has an update from the school board that Dora Sue or myself are authorized to bring that money back so that it's accessible for the construction. So right now the money is there under.
This is bond money that we have?
That we
It's-
have.
it's
That was
sort of
that was
building money
that, yeah. The
we-
board. I believe the board approved that money to be transferred there in 2010. Yes,
Instead of sitting in a bank account somewhere.
That's
earning
correct.
Interest.
that's correct. For
This-
some reason, it was perceived, and that may have been correct, that this was a better option for that money.
Mhm.
Got it.
Okay. Are there other funds that you plan to move into? Because from reading the item, it seemed like you're taking our
Yeah.
current money and putting it in. And
No,
you're saying it's
yeah.
actually the inverse.
It's actually the inverse. The authorization the board gives us, and certainly we're open to amending it if you prefer that it be a one-way authorization. It's not. I don't think it's a concern. I don't have a concern about it. I don't know that Doris Hu does, but we basically are trying to update our records with this investment fund so we can get the money back into our local budget so that it's available as soon as possible as we're continuing to process bills for the construction.
Okay, other questions?
I do.
Yeah, Member Marion?
This money is essentially earmarked already. It's essentially spent.
It is. It's just not as accessible as it should be for us to continue the project right now, we've learned, yes.
Okay. Is there going to be any kind of hindrance with transferring these funds for the construction of the ECCL?
I don't believe so. The only hindrance now is the signatures and who's authorized.
Okay.
Other questions? I guess the one, well, maybe I'll save that for discussion. Let's see if, is there any public comment on this item? No. Okay. Yes, the one substantive question I had was as written, just gives the superintendent and the fiscal services director complete discretion to move money in, move money out. I guess, especially if we're talking about funds like $20 million, maybe we should know if that's happening. And
Yeah.
so,
Certainly can amend this as you like. You could add a requirement that the board is notified on those transactions. I think that's fine.
Actually, this is a document that on their website.
Their suggested
That's,
resolution.
that's what they are
Mhm.
suggesting us to use.
Sure. But I think we could amend it if we wanted to add to it.
Okay.
It might be a good idea, in fact.
yeah, I guess I would feel more comfortable if it's part of the resolution and the authority exercise that the superintendent shall notify the board when actions have been taken pursuant to this resolution.
Mhm. Superintendent shall notify, should put the board when, I'm sorry, what was the last piece?
When actions have been taken or exercised under this resolution.
Mhm. Got it.
So I would propose that friendly amendment.
Mhm.
And with that, would move we adopt it
As amended?
as amended?
Yes. So motion. So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Brown?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We're on to item 7.4.
Yes, good evening again. This is an informational only item. This is the this is the annual developer fee accounting information. The board is receiving the annual report on statutory fees. And Ms. Sue is here again if we have any questions regarding this.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are going to look at the 2014-15 developer fees. And these are two government code that requiring the school districts to report the annual accounting and the 5 years accounting for the developer fees collected. And we are going to show you the fees that we received and the expenditures out of the developer fees tonight. And developer fees can be used for mainly for construction or reconstruction of school facilities. And any costs that associated with any justification study or any service fee that link to conducting the process of collecting the developer fees. And the developer fees cannot be used for maintenance or routine repair. And the beginning balance as of July 1st, 2014 is $2.1 million. And we collected $452,000 and we spent $624,000. Now the fund balance as of June 30th, 2015 is $1.99 million. And the staff is asking the board to accept the developer fee report as required by law. And before we're done with the PowerPoint, but I want to look at the resolution that attached to the package.
So this is now item 7.5?
Yes.
The resolution? So I guess that was one of my questions, was what's the relationship between 7.4 and 7.5?
They're fairly directly related. There's ed code that requires the board receives the information on the annual report, and then this resolution is a separate item, so I don't know if the board wants to entertain both of them.
Take it as separate items.
Probably,
The report that we're receiving is basically this PowerPoint?
Yes, and it's the public report.
That's the public report. Okay, so why don't we, can you go back to the previous slide? Because that's the heart of the report, is the fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah, so so we're just going to deal with the report first, then we'll do the resolution.
All right.
So as of June 30th, 2015, we have $1.9 million in there. And my question, which is primarily the superintendent, but maybe Ms. Sue also, we have to spend these monies within 5 years of their receipt.
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of discussed this last year when this came up. After this year, we don't have a big $2 million construction on the horizon
Right.
in the next 5 years. So are we planning to use all of that $1.9 million on ECCL and use it up now, even though we don't? It's within, well before the end of the 5-year period.
Based on when some of that money hits the 5-year mark, which is not that far out, I would say yes. We're planning on using most, if not all of that, during the ECCL project.
Actually, to answer your question, the entire $1.9 million as of June 30th, 2015 has been already encumbered in the 15-16 Turner contract.
Okay, that does answer the question, which I think is the right course of action to make sure we maximize our use of developer fees. Do you have any idea what the projection is for developer fees to come in this year?
Right now, I already got an email from the city. We are not getting any money coming in for the first quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's hard to project. You don't really know until you got that email from the city to tell you how much money that you received.
Mm-hmm.
But so far, for the first quarter, the number is 0.
Yeah, no new projects came in the first
Mhm.
quarter. Okay. Other questions for Ms. Sue? Okay. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none. If you go to the last slide, your slide says accept the developer fee report? Are we formally required to, because you've listed it as an information only, but are we required to take an action and accept this report?
I believe that we are, based on my knowledge of it. Yes, that's what I believe.
The resolution, which we will discuss in the next item, will need the board approval and signature.
Okay, so the resolution in 7.5 covers the legal requirement to accept the report, Superintendent, is that?
I think the confusion is, in the past, the board has taken action on this item. It is possible that the board doesn't have to formally vote on accepting it. I think the intent of the ed code is that it is done within 180 days of the end of the fiscal year, and that it is made available to the public. So my belief that it is, I apologize for the confusion, that it is informational only and that you don't have to take a vote on this part of it.
Okay.
It's just a past practice of the board that the board has done so.
All right, well, does anyone feel moved to formal action? It seems like we're covered. All right, so why don't we move on to item 7.5?
Great, thank you. The purpose of this item is to secure the board's approval of a resolution regarding the annual accounting of school facilities fees. And again, Ms. Sue has the information for you in a packet for us that is required for board approval. Now, I believe that technically that this is required every 5 years also, but it is typically recommended the school districts to play it safe because there's some vagueness on the language. Present this every year.
So this particular resolution does require the board certify this resolution. And then it's on the first 3 pages is the resolution itself, and on page 3 is where the board members need to certify this resolution. And then on the last 2 pages is the Exhibit A and Exhibit B. I'm not going to go into detail on these 2 exhibits, but I would like to point to your attention to the attachment, because most of the attachments will give you the further details regarding on this resolution. The attachment 1, which is on the Exhibit A, Item B, see Attachment 1. This shows you the developer fees rate back to June 1st, 2008. And this is still valid as of today. These are the rates that we are charging the developers. And then on the attachment 2, which is on the Exhibit A, Item C, is giving you the beginning and the ending balance of the fund. And also it's giving you the information on how much money we collected and how much that we earned in interest for fiscal year 14-15. And then on attachment 3, which is on Exhibit A, item number E, it gives you the detail on the expenditures, which come to a total of $624,000. And then on attachment number 4, which is showing on the Exhibit B, item number A, you will see attachment 4, which is the 5 years accounting. And on page 2 of the attachment 4, it shows you the funds need to be spent by which fiscal year. So any questions on the resolution?
Yes, this is helpful, and you improved last year, or maybe it was the year before, I forget which. But you improved the showing us what needs to be spent by what year, so I appreciate your continuing that.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I'm on attachment 4, where, as you say, the last page 2 lays out what needs to be spent in 15-16, 281,000, 1.2 million in 16-17, et cetera. I didn't actually calculate all that, but that looks like if we add those 4 years up, it equal, is that the 1.9 million?
That's right.
But we're not going to wait till those years. That's what we've already encumbered. We're going to spend
Yeah.
on ECCL.
They
right?
will be all spent in 15-16.
Okay, all right. I think that, and my one question for the superintendent on the, whichever attachment is that shows us what we spent in 14-15, the 624,000 on, there's 93,000 that's spent on furniture and fixtures and equipment, FF&E, to one workplace. The question was, can we use developer fees for FF&E? And you were going to check with council on that.
That's correct, and we are double checking to make sure we have this correct. We believe that we can do so, and we were hoping to hear from council today, and we did not. We anticipate hearing from them by tomorrow. We noticed by looking at other districts and some other documents, legal documents, we found both actually on the internet that a number of districts have in their justification studies that yes, they've included FF&E. Our council is reviewing.
At least for new construction.
I'm sorry?
At least for new construction?
At least for new construction,
Yeah.
that's right. And council, today, we believed, we had forwarded them our original 2008 justification study in the language so that we could, just to ensure, if it is a problem for us, we can very easily go ahead and swap that out and move that so that it's not coming out of developer fees.
But we have another
Yeah,
expenditure
in terms of construction
that
money,
we
yes.
did in 14-15 that would satisfy.
Yes.
And I want to add in a little comment on that one too. I had a conversation with the external auditor. From the fiscal standpoint, this is a valid requisition. What happened is, in the California School Accounting Manual, it's spelled out on how you classify the objects. In this case, this classroom furniture requisition is part of the ECCL project. Any initial cost of any built-in fixtures that you would acquired is part of the major district site construction. So in this case, obviously, it's ECCL. So that's why when the department put through that requisition and funded by developer fees, there was no question raised in the business office.
Okay, that's helpful. And council's reviewed this already, or?
Well, we're waiting to hear back from council. We haven't gotten confirmation on that one specific question, but I anticipate that they're going to confirm what Ms. Sue has just shared with you.
Okay. Any other questions on this item from this? Any public comment? Any discussion? Yeah, so I would just suggest we approve the agenda, or the item, with direction to substitute in a separate expenditure, 14-15, that satisfies the legal requirements, should council indicate that FF&E is not appropriate, and that you notify the board what that was.
Either way, would you like notification of
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
So that would be my motion, that we adopt as amended.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Brown? Yes. Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President FL?
Yes. Okay, the item passes unanimously. We're on to item 7.6.
Yes, thank you. This is our Local Control Accountability Plan, or LCAP update. This is an informational item this evening. The board received an update on our local control plan at its retreat back in September, on September 26th. It was agreed then that the board would be updated in January and April on our local control accountability plan, an analysis of the actions that we have in our plan, and again, I'll add that we appreciated greatly all the parent input that we received last year, is being presented tonight by our Director of Instructional Programs, Ms. Lori McDonald. Ms. McDonald, hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. All right. So we are going to give you an update on our progress from our 15-16 local control and accountability plan tonight. The way we're going to do that is to review the actions from the LCAP. So to refresh your memory, the structure of the LCAP is that we have 3 goals, and in each goal we address our needs. And then we, for each of those, we have a measurable outcome. And after we do our AMOs, then we address the actions that are going to meet the needs. And to each of the actions is attached the funding that we will need to meet those actions. So I'm going to go through, and in your packet were all of the actions, and we want to go through those, a few of those specifically, but then talk about them in general tonight. For the actions, in Goal 1, there were 19 actions. In Goal 2, there were 7. And in Goal 3, there were 8 actions that we put forth. Here is what the status of the actions looks like. We had rated them with 3 categories: beginning, in progress, and complete. Beginning, we defined as in the beginning stages of planning and implementation. In progress was we have begun implementation, but more steps are required to fully implement. And complete is that we have completed all the actions to launch the initiative. So you can see from this, and this was in your packet, where we are relative to actions that we're beginning, actions that are in progress, that's the majority of them, and actions that we have completed the launch of. In your packet, we went through and we gave you the goals, and then we listed all of the actions, and then on the right-hand side, we indicated which of them we were still at the beginning stages, which were in progress, and which were complete. I'm not going to go over all of these and right now, but in just a couple slides, we'll highlight a few of these actions. So there's Goal 1 and Goals 2 and 3. In order to highlight a few things, I thought we would use the lens of the state's priorities. The state has 8 priorities, and they are, as you recall, they are divided into 3 buckets: conditions for student learning, pupil outcomes, and engagement. So I thought we would look at just a couple of our actions within each of these big buckets and sort of in order to highlight a few things. So under conditions for student learning, one of the things that we have done this year that was one of our actions was that we would get Waterford Early Learning in place, and which we have done thanks to our great director of technology and our amazing tech team. So really happy about that. One of the great things about the Waterford program is that they, although they've been around for a while, a not-for-profit organization, they revamped all of their materials to align to Common Core, which is really essential because that close reading aspect, you have to be asking different questions that can't be answered by previous experience or good guessing. So they've redone it to really hone in on getting students to do close reading. So this goal is under the auspices of aligning to Common Core, so we're really happy about getting that in place so early in the year. Another action was that we would provide training to improve the quality of our English language development. We are really excited because the next 2 months, over the next 2 months, Ms. Miller and I have developed, mostly Ms. Miller, have developed training for all of our students that we are going to deliver in grade level teams around the new ELD standards. The state has new ELD standards now. It has a new assessment for English learners. It has new proficiency levels. We are going from 5 to 3. And the standards are really remarkable in that they totally overlay with the English language arts standards and the Common Core, so that the major instructional shifts in the Common Core around complexity of text and building knowledge and being able to make claims and provide evidence. The ELD standards are no longer sort of ancillary, peripheral standards. They totally overlay with those new ELA standards. So if we do training with students on the ELD, it just enhances what they're already doing in ELA. So we're really excited about this, but we have to get them all in the room and wrestle through these standards. So that's going to be in the next 2 months.
Did you mean training with the teachers?
What was that?
You said if we do training with the students.
I meant with the teachers.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Another thing that I wanted to do was just talk about goals that we have for each quarter. So under conditions for student learning, one of the goals is that we would use our DNA system in Illuminate to inform ongoing instruction. This is important to note. We are using Illuminate to create assessments, deliver assessments, and to score assessments. But coming up this next quarter, now what we want to do is be able to use its robust reporting system, and it can disaggregate lots of data, and to work with teachers. I meet with them in grade level teams around these things. So that's a goal next, is to be able to use that data. The next big bucket for the state was the pupil outcomes. A couple of things that were that we have accomplished this year so far. One of our actions was that students who are struggling academically will receive tutoring. That is happening 3 days a week at the high school and 2 days a week in mathematics for our middle school students at AYES, and we're happy about that. Another action was that we would establish a new college and career center at ESS, which we did. Last year, Mr. Ferber worked with the CTE rep, the ROP rep from the county, and asked her to come in, because she's done this before, to set up a college and career center, which she has done. And students come in, and she's there for about 5 hours on Wednesday, and they come in and she meets with them. In addition, our new counselor, Sarah Cavero, meets with students in the mornings and takes them in and helps them fill out their financial aid, their scholarship, and their college applications. So we are happy about that development. A goal here for pupil outcomes is that we would get tutoring for the K-5 students at Anna Yates. So we're looking into different models for that. Finally, the third bucket, engagement. Provide rigorous after-school offerings. We are happy about the after-school offerings that we have. A few things to note at Anna Yates: the Science Adventures for Girls, Science and Engineering for Boys, and now, as you saw in Dr. Rubio's community update, we have the STEM CSUEB relationship, and they're going to be using our Science Center after school, and so there will be offerings there. In addition to the Rec Center has after-school offerings as well for our after-school students. And ESS has athletics. They have debate. They have their computer lab is open several afternoons a week for students to go in and work on projects, in addition to the tutoring that I mentioned earlier. Another action that we had was that we would provide online reteaching assistance for students. This is important for engagement. The reason it's here is because students who don't do well in classes and don't have a chance to really make up that class and have that bad mark on their report card, they tend to withdraw. They are less engaged, and that can start that downward spiral towards dropping out or not being college ready. So we're really happy about the Odyssey Ware program that we have in place, and so that students can make up classes that they didn't do well in and keep on their college readiness track. The goal here for the next quarter is to we won't launch it, but what we want to do is start the parent portal for the student information system in Illuminate. We are planning to purchase and to switch over to the Illuminate SIS, so then we'll have all of Illuminate, data and assessment and student information. So we're going to be working on the parent portal, because right now we don't have something where parents can go and get lots of information on their student. So that's a goal. We'll be working with tech on that. One area that we do meet with, that we do have parent interaction, is parent engagement with some meetings. This happens to be a meeting of the DLAC at Anna Yates that we went to, and that Dr. Rubio and I attended with Ms. Lang and Mr. Labasse, as you can see, and we went over the LCAP in this meeting and got lots of ideas. It was a long meeting, and it was really good. We broke them up into groups, so that was good. But we want them to not only have face-to-face contact, we want them to have online access to us as well. Thus ends my report, and are there any questions?
You talked about a lot of acquisition. If you go back to the early reading and early math slide, so we have that in place. Where are we at on the Waterford? That's what I was looking for. What percentage of our students are using that?
I would have to defer that question to the Director of Technology. I don't know how we're tracking that.
What percentage of our teachers are really, I mean, they were
Dr.
trained?
Rubio is kind of overseeing that.
What I can tell you, I think this might have been, you may have saw this reference in the Windsor Community Update as well. The Waterford software was set up and implemented in December, just before the break. Letters went home to all of the TKK first and second grade parents to let them know what their child's username and password was, so they could actually access it over to the December break. I haven't looked at usage yet, to be honest with you. I just haven't had a moment, but we can certainly bring that back to the board.
So we're not, okay. And then a similar question, if you go down to the, keep going, sorry.
That's okay. Keep going.
Keep going, yeah. So what percentage of our students are taking advantage of the tutoring, and how is that going?
I don't have percentage data from Mr. Ferber on how many people are attending that. Let me look.
I'll add while Ms. McDonald is looking. I've been there and seen the students meeting with teachers, and it's typically the room on the first floor for tutoring. So I actually saw a couple of different teachers in there working with small groups of students. So I don't know the numbers offhand myself, but that's what I've observed in the fall. And we're trying, I know there's a push at the school to, and the parents were receiving robocalls, like, tutoring is available. Your child, can stay here longer. They can be here. So I know some of the high school students, and I wish a high school member was still here. I know she couldn't stay maybe, but I would ask her. I know sometimes some of the high school students may not want to stay after school, but I am aware of the fact that Mr. Ferber and the staff were making a push to keep students, and bless you, and have students stay for tutoring.
But I can ask Mr. Ferber about those, the percentage of students that are accessing that, and get that to you, Board Member Pats. What other questions?
So there are a couple that are still in the beginning phase, one of which is repurposing the ELD coordinator for direct classroom and teacher work. And I think that was work to be done with the science teacher, the art teacher, music teacher, and bring in. So can you say more about that and why that has not advanced further, and what our prospects are for
Sure.
getting that completed by the end of the year?
Yeah. The aspect of that rather large Action 8 is that the ELD coordinator, Ms. Miller, would be in the classroom demonstrating and working with teachers around ELD, the new ELD standards. but it's tough with the brand new standards and the ELA standards so new. It was hard for her to go in and do this modeling before the training occurred. Because there isn't a common language, there isn't a common understanding, and most people have the kind of the old mindset of the old CELT and the SEDI stuff. So after part of our long-term goal from now to the end of the year was to do this training, to get everybody on the same page, to have, we have some common academic outcomes, sentence frames, the ways that students can build knowledge by discussing academic discussion and academic vocabulary. Those are just 3. So if we can get those common things in the classroom through this training, she can go in then and be modeling lessons. And the state, thankfully, has lots and lots of information for us to do that. It was just a matter of getting everybody on the same page.
That's helpful.
Mhm.
When is this training going to take
It
place?
starts next week, so it's Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next several months. Couple months, yeah.
Okay, and so do you think by the end of the year, then
Yeah,
we'll have
it's
completed the
yeah.
action?
It'll be part of. It's part of our. Once she and I set up this plan to do the PD, it was also so that then she could get into the classrooms.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to hear. What about the Odyssey-ware and the AP online course taking?
That was my idea last spring when Mr. Ferber showed us the Odyssey-ware for the course recovery, the unit recovery program. I was talking to Odyssey-ware extensively, and so one of the things I found out about was the AP offering. It requires, though, finding teachers and incorporating those into the master schedule. So that has not been done this year. And it might be in development this year for next year's master schedule and next year's planning.
So it looks like we won't complete that action this year, but
That is correct.
At most, it'll be a beta or some sort of in development. Do you think that we're just going to drop it, or do you think there's a likelihood that
No,
we'll be able
I don't
to do
think so.
that next year?
I think it goes. It's part of the ongoing conversation that we have around the CPT conversation, which is
CPT.
the career CPT Career Pathways Trust. It's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
CTE stuff the grant that we have. So in our work with Robert Curtis from the county and Evan Decker, who was helping us for a bit, one of the big questions is, how do you set up a master schedule that incorporates these things, the pathway classes that we want, the new AP classes that we want. So it just, a lot of it is just, it's a scheduling issue. If someone's going to teach this AP class with Odyssey-ware, what does that look like? Is it a 0 period? So it's a matter of looking at all the pieces and creating the master schedule and the staffing around what we want to do.
Well, it is a issue I hear raised by students in the high school.
Yeah.
They want more AP
More AP,
classes.
yeah.
And so I was hopeful that we were going to be able to provide that to them this year. It sounds like we're not really going to be able to provide extra this year, that we might in the future. Hopefully next year.
Hopefully next year. We have.
And is it limited to whatever the CTE pathway is that
No,
we choose?
no. The only reason I brought that up is
Yeah.
to say that those conversations are to just implement it is rather difficult. It has to work within the master schedule.
There has to be a period for
Yeah,
students
right.
to go
And
in.
there have to be enough students to justify that. And with so few students, master scheduling is it's more tricky with fewer students.
I wanted to add, if I might, that we had some hesitation by some of the teachers this year, and when Mr. Ferber had conversations with them in August regarding their willingness to, or maybe their level of confidence, we think, on taking on an AP class. So we believe there is in fact a great young science teacher there who's really developing. Started as an intern with us, as you might recall. But we believe that he is a great candidate to start teaching AP classes next year. So that's, I just want to add that to our conversation. Part of the issue for us also is getting of the limited staff we have, finding the teachers who are willing and able and confident enough to take on teaching an advanced placement course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, well, I hope the science teacher can take on one. That would be
Mhm.
great.
Yeah.
But that was the promise of the
That's correct.
Odyssey Ware, was that
Right.
it expanded our capacity. We could
Correct.
teach things that we didn't have teachers for,
Correct.
as long as we at least had a proctor and a period for the students to take advantage of it. So I guess I would urge us to
Mhm.
try to operationalize that
Mhm.
going
Okay.
forward, so so we don't have to rely just on the personnel we have at the
Got it.
school site. On the CTE question, can you give us an update on where that is, our plan for a pathway, and are we going to implement that next year?
Are you going off agenda?
No, it's on-
I'm just checking.
Isn't this on Developed Career Pathways
Oh, okay,
Program,
just
which is in
checking.
progress?
Okay. Ms. McDonald, do you want to update on our last meeting with Robert and I forgot his last name, Robert Curtis, and where we're at?
Right. We've gathered lots of data from students. We've gathered lots of data around career opportunities, so through our consultant, Evan Decker. And now it really becomes a matter of the numbers. We were thinking we would do 2 simple pathways, biotech and digital arts. By simple pathways, I mean just providing 3 or 4 a sequence of classes. And we all met and had a long meeting, and at the end of that, it seemed better that we would do 1 pathway and get some of the core classes to contribute to the pathway, so that students, if we did digital arts or biotech, that in their English classes and their history classes and their math classes, there would be some tie-in. That's where Robert Curtis's master scheduling expertise really helped us. He seemed to think that would be a better option. So we're leaning towards 1, and to make it not just a sequence of 3 classes, but to be able to have some of the core classes feed into that as well. That's where we are right now. Just in terms of we've gathered the data. The data actually supports nicely the biotech option, in terms of careers and options available, and nearby other pathway schools and community colleges that could support that. But we still have not decided on the digital arts or biotech pathway.
And are we applying for the new CTE money?
The recent money that, yes, that was just, I think it was, the deadline was about a week ago or so.
Yeah.
We are part of a consortium with Contra Costa County, so the answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
and outlook is good, I hear, because from what I hear,
it's a near
from the number of people who
You're
apply.
trying to
Yeah.
push the money out.
Yeah,
The
that's
governor
what I heard
really,
today as well.
Yes, wants it out, so.
Yeah, that's good news for us, because we certainly had some general fund impact on one of the a good part of one of the teacher salaries at the high school that was no longer being supported by the old ROP funding, so and it was, or diminishing very quickly. So we're fingers are crossed.
Okay. Under goal 3, there are 2 items that we're beginning. Provide programming for student interactions, action 5. Can illuminate us on what exactly that was, and what our prospects are for completing by the end of the year, or have we changed direction?
Action 5, is that what you?
Yeah. Goal 3, action 5.
The purpose of that action was to provide a placeholder and to keep in the forefront of our mind that as we move into ECCL, which is what Goal 3 is about, people will have ideas about programs and about what they might want to do. So we wanted to set aside some funding to make those program opportunities available to teachers. So that's what that is. So it actually,
So what is the, I mean, I thought that was socio-emotional supports and other kinds of.
The idea of the goal is that that students would be able to interact, socialize, and learn. And our thinking in the spring was, we don't have all of the ideas. We haven't exhausted all the ideas around implementing that. But people will have ideas around ways to have students interact and socialize and learn. And so we wanted to set aside some funding to support new initiatives from teachers. That's what that goal is.
So what's going on there, and are we going to have completed it by the end of the year?
If the goal is to support teacher initiatives toward new programming at ECCL, then I think it would be completed by the end of the year. We just need a mechanism in place for getting those ideas and for setting those initiatives. Dr. Rubio, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I don't. We are certainly juggling as many things as we can, and I appreciate the fairly exhaustive list of actions we have for these goals. So we are endearing to complete them all if we can, but I don't have a solid.
Okay. What about the Spanish-speaking bilingual parent liaison? Have we done anything to implement that?
Dr. Rubio.
We, Ms. Harrell, before the holiday break, had received some other descriptions from other districts, and so we were running behind on that, but I anticipate that should be out and posted within the next 10 days.
So
we're behind.
We're behind.
We're behind on that, but we are
we're
moving. That's
ahead to
correct.
have that completed.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the parents at Annie Yates particularly will be very excited because they've been asking for that, they said, for a number of years.
Yes, they have, and we put that in our, if I'm not mistaken, our LCAP the first year, and didn't do it.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was a
Oh, it
list
was
of
on the
things
list. I
that
think it was on
just
list.
missed the cutoff.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it made the cutoff
Yeah.
last year, so I'd
That's right. I
I'd
think
love
within
it if
10
we
days it'll
can-
be posted.
if we can do that.
Sure.
Great. Okay, are there other questions?
Just one minor
Michael
item.
Mary?
On your slide that you have up there, item and under goal 2, item 4, is that just an omission?
It's blank. Yeah.
Okay. That may be
So there are actually 7 actions in that in that goal.
That was just to see if you're paying attention. Good job. You passed. All right.
It passed the county that way. Can we just point
Really?
that out? It did.
Talk to my friends at the county.
Oh, so you left it that way just to keep our integrity
Yep,
to the,
yep,
to
just
keep
to
our
see.
integrity to the action numbers submitted to the county. Thank you, Ms. McDonald.
Yeah.
There'll be no confusion about action 4 for that
So it
goal.
was actually to see if the county was paying attention, and the answer is they weren't. Okay. All right, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, this is just an information update. Thank you for the presentation and putting this together, and we look forward to revisiting it in April, is it, when we're next going to see you on this?
I'll be back.
Okay, all right. Well, before you go,
Yep.
I guess maybe you can tell us what the plan is for the new LCAP season for 16-17, and when, if you have a rough idea of when you think engagements may begin to happen with the school community, and gathering input and further refining our.
Yeah, I think that our goal was to have the stakeholder engagement at least 3 times a year, if not I guess trimesterly. So we're planning to have one. It will be to keep getting information on this year's implementation, and then we'll have one later in the spring around goals for next year. So there's the review and implementation recommendations for this, and then later the last one will be recommendations for the 16-17 LCAP.
Okay. Well, it would, I guess, ideally we'd be starting to reach out and educate people, because there are many people who maybe aren't aware of all the actions that we're doing and plans. I mean, this is basically the district's strategic plan for addressing its 4 big goals. And so we have some education that we could do. The site councils should certainly be part of the conversation. And I guess March, April, be gathering people's input on, how should we continue, keep these exactly, or how should we tweak them? And then we'll know what money we have that's coming in with the budget, and then we'll have a sense of, well, what could we add to, how much do we have to add to? We sort of need to know. So anyway, I guess March, April is that conversation, and then start to see drafts in May-ish. Does that sound about right?
That would be our plan. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Terrific. All right.
Right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
McDonald. All right, Superintendent, we're on item 7.7.
Yes, this is an action item this evening, and the rationale or purpose for this is for the Board of Trustees to receive the annual parcel tax report. This evening we have Mr. Bowders with us. Mr. John Bowders is our new chair of our Parcel Tax Committee, and very happy to have him with us this evening. Good evening, Mr. Bowders.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
So just here this evening to provide a brief overview and summary of what the Citizens Parcel Tax Oversight Committee for Measures A and K submitted to you this year in our annual report. I wanted to just start by, they're not here tonight, but thank Steve, Sam, Lisa, and Miguel, the other members of the committee, a very collegial and congenial group, and we had a good time working together this year. And thank staff as well for their support in the meetings we had. So basically, the report we have in front of you just has a few things. The role of the Citizens Oversight Committee in brief is to provide oversight to the expenditure of the parcel tax funds made available to the school district through Measure K, and to make recommendations to the school district on several items, both the expenditure of the parcel tax funds to make sure that the funds are used according to the law in the Education Code and the California Constitution, and to provide feedback and insight on the community's perspective of future use possibilities within that space. Just a couple things. I put up in here committee membership to begin, the qualifications for committee membership. Membership terms are 2 years, so the board will need to take action in January. There's 2 people whose terms have expired this month. Those would be Sam and Steve. Steve is going to seek reappointment from you, and Sam has, after many years, decided to pass the torch. So we are looking right now for somebody to fill that spot, and hopefully we'll bring a name to you in the near future. There's an overview financial summary for the district. I won't go into that specifically. The committee had 2 meetings as required by law. This year we had a meeting on July 6th. There's a full summary of the meeting provided for you there. And there was a separate meeting on November 20th. Both of those were held here at the school district's office. Summary is in the report. In those meetings, we reviewed a number of different things. We took public comment. Some members of the public submitted information to us and comment by email, and those are also registered in this report. And at the end, the committee had a number of recommendations, which I'm happy to discuss our recommendations with you if you have questions. First is that we found that the total revenue for the district from the parcel tax this year was just short of $2.4 million. I'm sorry, the total revenue balance for the entire district was $2.4 million that were in total reserves at the end of the year, of which 2.2 was unrestricted. And the parcel tax balance at the end of the year after revenues and expenditures was $417,000, as reported to us on Exhibit A, which is attached to the report. We took information from staff as to reasons why the balance may fluctuate between year and year. Changes to the local control funding formula were discussed. And after reviewing opportunities to make recommendations for the immediate expenditure of the balance of the parcel tax funds, we decided as a committee not to do that and to undertake a process to be informed by the public. So to that end, under the provisions of the bylaws, I've called for a special meeting, which will be on March 12th at noon here in this room for the purposes of hearings from the parents, students, and residents of Emeryville as to their desired use for additional expenditure under the parcel tax rules. We wanted to thank the board for their partnership in codifying Section 19 of the bylaws, which I came to you in June about, which put in place a practice that protected the rights of seniors to the senior exemption between years. And our recommendations were as follows. We did do a review of the senior exemption further, and it was brought to us by several residents that there was concern that there wasn't adequate notice of the rights seniors have under the parcel tax exemption for seniors. We believe that the district is meeting the minimum requirements required by law, but we would make several recommendations. We specifically recommend, one, that the district post notice of the rights seniors have to be exempted from the parcel tax in the front office of all school facilities and offices within the district in a manner location that's visible to all visitors. Two, that the district print notice of the rights of seniors to be exempted from this tax in the City of Emeryville's quarterly rec guide, which is mailed to all residents. I met with the city manager about this, and she offered to do this for free if it was provided to her. That's something that we didn't provide staff specific guidance on what the content of that would look like, but we recommend that the district staff and the city staff work to put that into the quarterly print piece. 3, update the current information provided on your website to include narrative information about the parcel tax, along with the description of the documents you currently have posted there. And 4, to formally amend Section 19 of the bylaws to reflect all 3 of the above changes so that the rights of seniors are ensured and explicit, predictable, and protected going forward. We reviewed the Alameda County Grand Jury findings that related to our committee and the Measure J committee. We were satisfied that the district did not violate law after the review of the grand jury findings. That said, we did consider whether or not the minimum 72 hours notice required under the Brown Act was the best we could do, and we unanimously decided to recommend number 5, that Section 9 of the bylaws be amended to add a sentence which reads, notwithstanding the aforementioned, all meetings shall be publicly noticed at least 5 full days before a regular or special meeting of the committee to allow maximum opportunity for the public to engage us. As to agendas, we just recommend, without formal changes to the bylaws, number 6, that all future regular meetings of the committee contain a certain minimum content for the board agenda, and all those items are listed there for you. And then we found one technical amendment needed for the bylaws, which was 7, to replace a reference to a Board of Education with the Board of Trustees. So those are the 7 recommendations we have. Questions?
May I just add a couple comments? I just want to say first, thank you very much, because one, I think it's great that the board has a written report in front of them. I don't know that was the recent practice.
I had to do some hunting from other school districts and have committees on how to do a report.
So thank you very much for your work and any work of anyone else who contributed to that. And 2, I just wanted to add for the board that I think that this report is very accurate and appropriate based on the information that the committee was given. On further review, and I appreciate Mr. Bowder's rigor in this, as I did on the senior exemption issue last year. It was very helpful. It's come to my attention that I think there were some pieces missing in terms of information to the committee regarding some of our beginning of the year staffing changes, and in addition to that, also regarding some planned curriculum adoptions for Common Core that had been part of the planned parcel tax budget for quite a while, and was omitted, I think, by accident. So the parcel tax committee didn't have the information in front of them, so I've instructed staff to go back and work with me to review all these items and come back probably at the first meeting in February here, just for an update to you, all of you as the board, regarding those pieces that we think may have been missing, so that the committee also can receive that information in public. So my apologies for that error, and thank you for what you've done. We want to be now more rigorous on our end to figure out was there some information missing, and I think there may have been.
Yeah, well, thank you for that clarification, because most of my, and again, I echo the superintendent's comments. Thank you for the rigorous report and your attention to the detail and all of the facets. Really nice work, and finding how to do a report from other districts, since you didn't have a good example here for you, unfortunately. But my biggest question was around the reserve thing. I mean, we ought to be spending the parcel tax money, and it's okay to say, you know what, we're going to hold on to X 100,000 this year because we got a plan, but we need to be using the money
Yeah.
and all have it according to plan. So do we, is it a matter that we've spent it, we haven't booked it and thought about it? Is that what you're saying?
I think the challenge we're facing in the beginning of the year in August and September as we're ramping up and starting school is that we're missing some critical budget planning conversations and pieces. So I believe that's where we're having trouble. So the money was booked, but I think it was quite a bit of it was, particularly as I look back to some of our new hires and some of the teachers who left and came in, we didn't take a moment to double check, I think, which teachers are supposed to be in the parcel tax versus the general fund. So that is some of the issue. And again, the Common Core curricular update and even the salary raise really should have been reflected there, and I don't think that's reflected there.
And you know, you create a budget when we adopt the budget in June, and that's based on assumptions about who's going to be in what position, and then the fifth grade teacher leaves, and the art teacher moves to fifth grade, as
Yes.
happened this year, and we get a different art teacher, and
That's correct.
all these things, they have different salaries associated with, so things change over time.
Right.
And we understand that, but yeah, it is important that you continue to update the process with respect to the parcel tax expenditures, so the committee
Correct.
gets to know exactly what's the most current, up-to-date
Correct.
information.
And we want them to have that for the fall meeting, so we're going to work to improve that. I think we certainly
if I
can.
could add to your comment, Mr. President, that was pretty much the concern of the committee, was we have a tax on local residents, and we would like to see it used to the extent that that's possible. And so this is a restricted fund compared to other funds you have, and if you have eligible funds or eligible expenses that could be used by this fund that currently aren't, and that would make other money you have more flexibly available to the district, we support that, and hopefully hearing the superintendent's comments on that, that sounds like that this report revealed that to you, and so we are happy to take that new information and make an amended recommendation on that if you actually have unaccounted for expenses that could be better spent through this fund.
Great, yeah, we appreciate that, and that I think is the intent of the parcel tax and the voters in supporting it to allow the district to continue the programs that it has, and if we've expended all of our parcel tax on everything that's in the measure and we still have some left over, then we got to add new programs with, right? But
I will ask, I mean, I heard you say this, but I will ask that the first meeting in February that be there, because we have anticipated giving 30 days notice of our hearing, which is set for March 12th already. And so if the purpose of that meeting needs to be modified or collaborated with some other purpose or otherwise changed, we would like to know that by then.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
so. It sounds like
We're-
that's the
we're-
plan.
That's our target, and we'll be able to do that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so then the other piece, or the flip side of that coin is that if there are funds left over to be expended, it's the we want to do it in a coordinated. We want to spend it in accord with the district's vision, plans, goals, LCAP actions that have been laid out and vetted through the community. So we need to figure out, and ultimately it's up to the board to decide how to spend the parcel tax funds, and it's for the parcel tax committee to say that was or wasn't proper.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the interaction between the two entities. So I guess we ought to know, as Mr. Bowders is saying, are there extra funds that need to be spent?
Correct.
And then if there are, we ought to integrate that as we have with our LCAP planning and budgeting and spending process.
Absolutely.
And I think our district has been somewhat exemplary in incorporating the, I don't know how closely you've looked at our LCAP, Mr. Bowders, but we actually, which is unusual for districts, include the parcel tax as an appendix and the expenditures in it to explain to the public how we're incorporating the parcel tax expenditures into the LCAP actions. So I think that it is supposed to be a comprehensive plan, spending an academic plan. So I just want to make sure we're moving forward to to do it comprehensively and coordinate it.
Yes, and I'll be sure to bring that information back to the first meeting in February.
Okay. All right. Other questions or comments? Do we have any public comment on this item? Is this an action item, or do we just?
This is just an informational report. The 7.8, however, is an action item that is separated out regarding the bylaws that Mr. Bowders mentioned.
Yes, but we don't.
But this one, no.
We hear and accept the report, but we don't formally need to adopt or approve it.
I don't believe
We
we
received
do.
it.
Past practice has been that we have, though. So I guess on this one, I'm going to ask. I think I will ask that the board approves this one.
Given that there's inaccuracies is the wrong word, but discrepancies, that's the word I'm looking for, between what we have done with the parcel tax funds and the information that they had, do we want to accept this reword? I mean, they had to write this report without correct information. And so do we want to wait and wait until we've given them the correct information? I mean, it's before we accept their report, or do we want to, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think for that reason, I would not formally adopt it or, I mean, I think the report is accurate based on what we gave them.
Right.
And so we're receiving it tonight, and I think if you're have updated information for the committee and they want to update their report, that's up to them. We'd love it if they did. And then let's take it, an updated report when we get it. Would be my recommendation. I don't know if you have a opinion on this.
The question as to whether you have to formally accept or not, I don't know the answer to that. That's with you. But if you do have to formally accept it, we would ask that you formally accept this report because it was written with the information the district provided us.
Yeah, and it's my belief that there's nothing that in the bylaws, the ballot measure, or the ed code that requires that it's formally approved or accepted. No, I know it's been our past practice, though, Mr. Rick, that we always have. The board has formally voted on the receiving of the report.
Yeah, it looks like that it's just a matter of the report being presented in a public meeting of the governing board. So I don't think that any formal action is required.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think so either.
Okay,
So I'll bring that information back to the first meeting in February.
great. Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Bowders. Nice work. Next item.
Next item is asking for board approval to amendment, technical amendment change to the Measure K bylaws, replacing the term Board of Education with Board of Trustees. And Mr. Bowders, did you want to add anything to this for the board?
Thank you. I didn't know if that was going to be more appropriate for public comment. I noticed that it only right now asks for the seventh recommendation in our report, the technical amendment. We would like the phrase added to Section 9 of the bylaws. The added sentence, Section 9 of the bylaws is the section that just spells out the Brown Act requirements essentially for noticing meetings. And so we have added one sentence that essentially keeps everything the same, but makes it a 5-day notice period as opposed to a 3-day notice period, which is the term that the committee unanimously recommended. Beyond that, we do recommend that you formally amend the senior exemption portion of the bylaws, Section 19, to include the posting, printing, and website, or at least posting and printing requirements that we recommend in 1 and 2, and maybe just some language from 3 that says that the district will keep updated information about the exemption on its website, but we did not bring proposed language for that piece of it to you in our report. So, yeah, supporting the recommendation that staff has, but I would also ask that the quoted language from recommendation 5 be added to that resolution, and that staff maybe bring back at the February meeting language for 1, 2, and 3's recommendation to be also added to your bylaws. That's my thoughts.
I think the only thing we've noticed for this meeting is the Board of Education, Board of Trustees change. So I don't think we can expand that and comply with the Brown Act. I think some of these other ideas are interesting ones, which I would suggest we address at a future meeting.
Okay. And Mr. Bowders, I apologize. I don't know if we missed some of those others that, from the committee that you want to change. I think staff thought this was the one change.
No, on page 7 of the report, if you have it in front of you.
Yes.
You see bold numbered 5?
Oh, I see it here.
Yeah. So that was a recommended change. The only reason 7 was probably it was a technical amendment, meaning that it wasn't substantive in any nature. These were substantive changes, so we separated them out from the technical one. So 5 was an actual recommended change, just to add that one sentence, and I would agree with the president that it's not noticed, so that maybe at the February meeting there can be a resolution to do that. And then number 4 on that same page also recommends to formally amend the bylaws to reflect 1, 2, and 3. So those are the other 2 changes we think the bylaws should make beyond the one that you have noticed for this hearing.
Okay.
And I would be happy to submit something to staff for 1, 2, and 3, some sort of brief language to encompass what we've intended with that, if that's helpful. But 5 we think is pretty straightforward too.
Okay, that would be helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and bring that forward. Thank you.
So what we have before us now is merely the technical amendment, which is in Section 7B of the bylaws to replace the term Board of Education with Board of Trustees. Are there any further questions on that?
No.
Any public comment? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Seconded by Miriam. Roll call, please.
Member Miriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
Member Ash?
This is the technical amendment.
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. The motion passes unanimously, and bylaws for Measure K committee are technically amended. All right.
Thank you, Mr. Bowders, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bowders. We're on item 7.9.
Okay, this is to ask the board to determine what interview questions, or to finalize your interview questions, I should say, for your board interview on January 21st.
And you provided, I assume was the last set of questions we had?
Yes, that's correct. So we have in your packets and posted 9 questions currently for the board vacancy application.
Any thoughts, questions, comments for board members? My agenda online is acting up, but
Do you need a paper copy?
no, I'm good. Just taking a second here.
I'll start since mine's
Yep.
not acting up. So I think item 7 harkens back to a previous superintendent. I don't know that we need to keep going to that issue. I think that was an issue at that time, and I don't know that this reflects where we've come to at this point. And then same thing with issue 9. I think I've made my comments before that I think the Masters in Governments, while a great program, is one of those things that we don't even ask of ourselves. So for a prospective board member, I don't know that it's the most relevant question.
So you would cut 7 and 9.
Correct.
Okay. I would agree with both of those. Item 8, question 8 about assuring health and well-being of children in our schools. Actions will you take if to ensure our students are healthy and fit. Perfectly good question. Is it, I guess, it seems rather specific, and is that in our limited time with our candidates, one of our top priorities to ask them about? So, I guess I would throw that out there as, is that, I would put that on the lower on the list of priorities if we're end up adding any others. It seems like it was past similar.
For me, the question is how much time do we have with each candidate? I think we did 20 minutes last time or something, or a half an hour, I don't remember. 20 minutes. So, at 6 questions, that's 3 minutes a question. So, I don't know, that's not a good number of questions.
Let me get to my questions. Let me go to some of my other thoughts. The 3 and 4 seem to be somewhat duplicative, and we asked one of them 3 in the application. And many people answered it sort of 3 and 4 and answering 3 in the application. At least some people did. So I don't know that we need both of those. I would be, I guess, either maybe in lieu of 3, asking a candidate to describe their commitment to making sure that the board functions well, and ask them what their prior experience has been working on a board of any type, or any other experience they have that might indicate how they work well in teams of some sort. I think that's going to yield more interesting information than what I think the role of a board member
Yes.
is that they've already sort of written about.
Well, my thoughts would be something along the lines of having to incorporate the efforts we went forth for our mission statement, as far as our 4 ideals, goals, and how these goals are interpreted by the board members, our prospective board members. That would be my take or my suggestion.
So you would ask them to review the 4 big goals
Mhm.
that the district has adopted, and do what? So what is the question?
maybe this is
what
just
do you
more
think of these
brains-
goals, or how
Yeah,
do you think the
think
district
and
should
how it
be?
how it would be applied, not through example, but just their ideas of how it would be applied. Just to get kind of their mindset on their approach to this position.
Mhm.
That would be one way of doing it, or one way of using it.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, that sort of ask them to respond in some way to the existing goals.
Yes, and start incorporating that more and more in our role as board members.
Mhm. Member Ash and or Pat's responses to Member Merriam's suggestion?
I do really like the idea of incorporating the goals. It's kind of what I was thinking also. Sorry, I said I do really like the idea of incorporating the goals. It's kind of what I was thinking also. Some way of, don't know exactly how, in what form of a question, but I do think that's an important piece to make sure that they're aware of and are thinking of as they apply.
You can take the mic over to the stage if you want.
I think that's a fine idea, but I think at that point we'd want to pare down to, I mean, that's almost a singular 10-minute question. You know, I don't know that I could, well, I can, but I don't know that most people can spend 3 minutes on 4 goals or, you know, 5 minutes on 4 goals that well, again, our goals. So, you know, those are deep philosophical waxings, and so I don't know, I like that, but I think if that's the way we're going to go, I want to, you know, either increase the amount of time people are going to have or decrease the overall number of questions. Maybe we want to skip some of the perfunctory ones.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm saying I think the 4 big goals are more important than number 8 about health and well-being, and we've already asked them number 3, so I would, and I don't know that 4 is that important either, or that different than number 3, which we've already asked them. So I would support stating what the 4 big goals are and asking candidates to, you know, in a few minutes, explain what you think about these goals, what would be your highest priorities in fulfilling these goals, or do you think the district should have different goals?
Maybe along the lines of an interpretation of those set goals, and how do they interpret them, and if able to serve on the board, how would they enact those goals?
Yeah, I have from Mr. Merriam earlier, how do you think these goals could be, I added a word, approached or applied? I thought was your intent. But,
Yes.
or maybe implemented. I'm not sure if you're going for implemented or.
So, how would these goals be?
I did have, what do you think of these goals? And then the earlier conversation was, how do you think these goals could be approached? To quote Mr. Marion. I assumed he meant applied, but I wasn't sure.
How do you?
Now, the other option the board might want to consider is putting the 4 goals in front of the applicants and asking them what stands out for them as most critical for the district and why.
But then they
It's
might
different.
They might pick one,
Mhm.
and not expound on one that they
True.
categorically disagree with.
Which-
That we,
Or you could add, and you could add that question too. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but so I guess it's, yeah. I don't know.
You'd say best to worst, and then
Rank them?
say
I don't know.
one would be this is why I support it. The latter would be why I don't support it. Something along those lines. If you want to break it down and say pros and cons of the 4 goals.
Explain why you support or don't support
Yeah.
these goals, and are there different goals that you think the district should be pursuing?
So backward mapping this, what's the answer we'd be looking for?
Yeah, that's how I say answer.
I'm almost looking to see their thought process and how they talk about the goals and the educating and preparing students for college and career readiness. And if they, I mean, as a board member, they have the ability to change these goals and add a new one or take one out or argue for that. So I guess I would also like to hear thought processes on what maybe they're thinking of things that we haven't thought about, and they could bring some additional perspective into the goal setting for the district.
So what if we use those to frame questions 5 and 6? You know, given the district goals, what do you think our strengths are in helping us achieve those goals? And then given the district goals, where do you think is our biggest area of weakness?
Yeah, use that as the overarching, and then easier answers to support it.
Yeah. So we're not having them rate our goals,
Yeah.
we're having them talk about our district.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that could work. I would still like to hear from them what do you think, what sort of, I don't know how to phrase it, what would you do differently about these goals, or how would you, what would you do instead of or in addition to these goals? To hear if they've got other thoughts or perspectives that we haven't considered. But I think your fundamental suggestion is one that could work.
So for 5 and 6, to quote Member Pence, if I understand correctly, it would sort of, given our current 4 goals, same for 6, okay? And
Keeping our full goals in mind, how do you see our biggest strengths?
Mhm.
How do you see us working towards them?
and then Member Affelt, the additional question that you were just proposing, would it be as similar also to, I'm not sure if it's the same, but are there any of these goals you don't support, and why? Or no, or is it more of
Yeah, I guess it's, are there any of these goals you don't support?
and what would you do instead? Or what should we be doing? Trying to capture both of your comments.
Yes. Are there any of these goals that you don't support? And either way, do you have additional goals that you think the district should consider?
Okay. And then are we axing questions 7, 8, 9?
7 and 9, we, I think, at least Member Pats and I are okay axing. I don't know about.
Yeah,
I'm fine with
Okay.
8 as well going,
Okay. 8 is
the health question.
health and fit. I mean, yeah. Okay, so we're axing 7, 8, and 9. Are we axing 3 and 4, or?
My recommendation was.
Go ahead.
I would
I'd like to
recommend that
hear
you keep them. You might want to tweak number 3 to say, as far as you know, maybe to give them some deference to their being maybe a new board member, but.
Well, we pretty much asked, well, I don't know. I think we asked 3 verbatim.
Oh, we,
in
on
the
the application?
application.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, then in case you have that.
But I would like to hear the individual espouse, it doesn't need to be 3 minutes,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
On their experience and interest, commitment to working together, to teamwork and collaboration.
Mhm.
I don't know quite how to phrase that, but.
Well, may I read what you initially said?
Okay.
Describe your commitment to ensuring that the board functions well, and any prior experiences on working on boards or in a team.
I like that. Since Sounded good? Who said that? So that's my proposed substitute for number 3. Member Merriam, I see you shaking your head.
No, I'm just
Oh.
looking through here, just seeing if there's anything else.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if we have some consensus on that substitution. Member Ash is saying she's okay with that. Member Pats?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so that's the new number 3.
And then we're dropping 4.
I think the superintendent would like to see 4.
Okay.
That tends to be a superintendent-sensitive question.
If you don't mind.
So I'm okay keeping that if others are.
Well, here's some suggestion regarding 4. The board's role in working with the superintendent.
So you're saying how
How does a member, as a board member, work with this superintendent, or?
The only reason I would be hesitant is because it does it's a little bit of a change to
Okay.
the question on that one. I think this one might
That's
be
fine then.
more specifically my
Okay.
interest, if the board is willing. Although that's also a good
Actually,
question.
you
It's a
know,
good
number-
question, it's just
no,
different.
Did we ask 3? Or that?
We substituted 3 for the one that Ms.
Okay.
Tamery most
Okay.
recently read.
Okay. That's fine then.
Do we want to ask if people have any familiarity or experience with budgets, or with education policy, or education?
Are we
period?
trying to, again, I think that's, at a certain point, we're going to go beyond the scope of our applicants. You know, if we had 100 applicants, I would think we could start screening it, but we've, at least, I want to say we have 5, and at a certain point, if we're asking those level of questions, we're excluding a couple of people on there, I think. So.
I would think that information would come out in number 2 anyways.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think you're
Much better
excluding
said.
people by asking a question. You're just gathering information, but it sounds like people feel comfortable that we'll get in number 2. Okay. We are building a full-service community school. And should we ask about people's familiarity with the project, with what a full-service community school is, and
I think that's on the application. Wasn't it?
it is. I'm not sure that we got complete answers from everybody on it. So I don't know if there's a better way to ask it, but
I think you might be right. Something of
can
that
you
nature.
speak into the
I'm
mic?
sorry. I think you might be correct in that approach. For the mere fact is that it's a venture that we're undergoing that is a very large liability, and to have an understanding of that would be probably a good thing to have.
So, would you just ask the same question we asked, or is there a better way to phrase it? What we said is, what is your understanding view of the Emeryville Center of Community Life project?
It's on there.
That's in the application.
Okay.
But that's why I was thinking something around what is your sense of a full-service community school?
Yeah, I would agree. It's not an open-ended question, but it's an interpretation, and it's kind of an understanding of all these things that are coming together, so they get a sense of the magnitude of it and importance. So I think that would be an appropriate question to ask.
Can you bring your mic a little bit closer? Just closer to you. Just closer to
Okay. I'm losing my voice too.
Okay, it's a little sick. How would you? How about something like how would you like to see the Center of Community Life realized?
I think that would be, yeah, it would be a broad enough question, but with enough directness to get a pertinent answer. Because we're not looking for specific details, we're just looking for how they sense and how they feel about the actual project.
And their sense of the vision of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if they have one.
I agree.
How would you like to see the Emeryville Center of Community Life realized? Member Pats or Ash, do you have a view on that question?
I don't think we need it, but
So we don't have consensus on this one. Superintendent, do you have any thoughts?
No, I know if you're asking them, the other question we're adding, I think, is if there are any of the 4 goals that they don't support in either way, do they have any additional goals? You're touching on goal 4, which is completely about ECCL. It may not be exactly the same as what you're looking for here, so. But can you clarify what this one was when you say realize? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah, how do you, by realize, I mean, what's your vision for how the ECCL will look if fully and well implemented? Do you have a vision?
Okay. In that case, I think that's a good question, I'd say. I didn't think I understood. Okay, when you said realize.
Okay.
I think that's a good question. Be good to add. Could be a very brief question.
You want it specific to ECCL rather than you want it specific to ECCL rather than the district in general? Are you looking for specifically ECCL related?
I was playing with different variations, but yeah, one of them was simply what's your vision of a full-service community school district? And but we currently don't have a, yeah. So it's only if one of you two think we should go in that direction, I think will we add one there.
I think that the question with a little more room for generally speaking is good. Maybe not solely focused on ECCL, but the district in whole, and then maybe with some emphasis on full service community. Because I think that some of,
I'm just thinking of what Member Ash said. I'm wondering if the question is whether or not they know or not, but and they may all know, but if all the district's resources and students and staff are on one site, then what do you see as the benefits or outcomes of this situation? Does that still capture what you're asking?
I think that's too specific.
That's too specific. Okay.
I still think we're backward mapping it. I'm curious, what's the answer you want? And to that end, I think that's just sort of making sure that we have someone who's in line. And so I just think that's too specific of a question once we get into the CACL. I don't think we're asking about their qualifications or their commitment to public ed. I think we're asking them an agenda question. So that's my big concern with it is, what do you want the answer to be? And I look at the other questions and I want the answer to be that, I'm qualified, I bring a rich experience and, a thoughtful mind, versus, are you going to play ball? So I worry that with that question and with that framing of it, what are you looking for the answer to be? So
I guess that's
Yeah.
why I think that if you make it more general about what, I think it's important to know what their vision of the district, in their ideal world, what the vision of the district would be. I want to make sure that it's someone that, go real extreme. We want somebody to come in and be like, well, I think it should be run like a prison. So I think that the view of what they would like to see the school district as, I think that is important to know. But that's generally speaking, not specifically ECCL related.
Yeah, I would agree with Member Ash. And I agree with you that asking, do you think a co-located K-12, I think that is too specific. And the answer that I want, that I'm trying to get at is, what is their vision of a, do they know what a community school is? Do they have a vision of a district that supports its students and provides wraparound services and integrates its delivery of education with the city and all the things that the city is bringing to the partnership that we have, which is unique, or if they have a vision that the district should just be focused on delivering standardized tests and measuring achievement scores, I guess I would want to know that. And they're not interested in the socio-emotional supports that a full service community school could bring. I would want to know that. So I don't know if there's a more general, broader way to get at that.
I got the beginning of what you said. Do you have any ideas or a vision of a full wraparound community school? I feel like I missed something at the end, but that's. I got the beginning. I may have missed what you said there.
Maybe it's asking if they're aware of the partnership we have with the city to provide a full service community school, and
again, I guess I think we
ahead.
get at that at the beginning. That's public education and our local school district. What's your commitment to that? I think you load the question up too much and it becomes a different conversation. So, again, I'm yeah.
be honest with you, I guess I like the part that I captured still. I heard your other part about, do you know about the city partnership, but I'm still more attracted to the, do you have any ideas, which I think I added, or a vision of what a full wraparound community school could be, or could look like? I'm adding a little bit. I think that's a good question, because it gives the board an idea of, even at that moment, to what extent could they take that and say, well, it could be this, it could be that. What ideas do they have?
Just a minor thing. Would, instead of using school, replace it with district as far as wraparound district. The approach to the district is a wraparound approach. Services, something of that nature, where you're not specifically stating school, but our district approach.
So what do you think about the district's vision to establish a full-service wraparound school district?
Yeah, something along those lines. So you're not putting it into one specific site or building or instance.
So it could be, do you have any ideas or vision of the types of services that a district or school would have? And I'm lost there. I'm stuck there.
So again, I'm going to just go back to the questions we're asking. Given our goals, what are our strengths? What are our weaknesses? Our goals encompasses all those services and the ideas. I think at a certain point, you're just trying to reword the question so you can make sure you have the answer to the original one you want. And I really, again, I want to hear background. I want to hear experience. I want to hear, the role of the board member, although I think we've taken that one out. I do actually think question 4, differ from the superintendent. I think that's a fine question. I think it's great we can identify strengths so they know the district, identify weaknesses, again, showing me they know the district. Beyond that, we're getting into how do you feel about this or feel about that, and we can do that, we can go through it, but then we should talk about other things as well. And we have 20 minutes.
Member Ash, were you going to add anything?
I do agree with Member Pat's. I remember that when we went through this, when we appointed Member Pat's, that we were really pressed for time. So I think that is a concern. I was just going to make a suggestion of you could ask the applicant if they're aware that we are, that the goal is to be a full-service community school, and ask them to define that. What does that mean to them?
What could it be?
Yeah.
What do you mean? What could it be to you?
Yeah, but I do agree with Member Patson that it is covered by our goals, and we could leave room for them to elaborate there also. Although I do think, I do think it's important to know what that means to them, because I think it's important.
So you would, if you were to ask it, you would ask, are you aware that we're striving to be a full-service community school district? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, I agree.
Member Patch? I would support that question. I think it's open-ended and broad enough. Member Patch, you still opposed to that one?
I think it's unnecessary.
Okay. Well, I think we have 3 of us who are willing to add it.
That's all you need.
I'm sorry?
I said that's all you need.
Okay. Should we give ourselves a half hour or make it 20 to 30 minutes? Sort of, I mean, people respond differently and we might not need a half hour, but yeah, I don't feel we should feel pressed for time, I guess.
How many questions are we at now? I think that should determine the time, is how many questions we have and how long we think each should be answered for.
I think we're 8 or 9.
We might be back to what we had. I think we're back to 9. I believe we added 3. I mean, this is one. So one question is, of these 4 goals, are there any that you don't support? Do you have any additional goals you think we should consider? Us looking at the 4 goals.
So we added that one. We took out 3, but we modified 3, so we didn't add 1.
1 and 2 stayed the same.
Where's some other?
That's 4.
Okay.
5 and 6 were modified.
Right.
5 and 6 were modified to state,
Yeah, given
with our 4
goals.
goals in mind,
Mhm.
what do you see as the strengths of the district? And then with our 4 goals in mind, what do you see as the areas most needing improvement?
Mhm. Yeah, that's not adding. Okay.
Okay, what are we up to?
The question is, how many have we added?
I think we've only, I think we cut 7, 8, and 9,
New ones.
and I think we added 3.
I believe we've added.
So I think we're at 9.
I count 9.
Okay, so
You want me to
Okay.
go through 'em?
no, if you have 9, I believe that's correct. We've added 3.
Yeah.
So the three I believe we've added are, you want to read this one?
No, I just did. I just read that one.
Are you aware that we are striving to be a full-service community district? What does that mean to you? Are we adding that one?
I believe we are. Full-service community school district.
And then there was one more, I believe.
Yeah.
Might be on the back of your last one.
No, it's this one. One. Two.
We're just looking for the new ones, so I just want, do we have 3 new ones? Is this this might be in here. Do you want to read that? Oh, that's a
I
tweak,
counted
that's a
that,
tweak. That's a-
yeah.
So maybe we've only added 2. I thought maybe there was the 3rd.
Okay, so
We're at 8. I
we
believe.
kind of rewrote 3, so maybe
That's
that's
the one I was
yeah.
counting,
Right.
yeah.
So
Right.
probably 8.
We're at 8.
Okay, so 25 minutes?
I'd say 30, and then
30.
it's 3 minutes per question, and then they have a final statement.
Okay.
Say it again. How many minutes per question?
3 minutes per question, and then time for a final statement.
Totaling how much now?
It'd be a total of 30 minutes.
So you're saying roughly 3 minutes a question?
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
3 to, 3.5, sort of up to, yeah, we're not going to cut them off
Yeah.
after 3, but
Yeah.
we'll tell them we get,
I would suggest we do, but
would you?
yeah, I think time management is an important skill. And if we tell you you have 30 minutes, we're asking you 8 questions. That actually tells me how quick of a thinker you are and how well. It's something that I value in interviews. I do a lot of interviewing, and
Mhm.
if you can't answer my question in 3 minutes or less, It means I'm hearing a lot of ums and thoughts that I don't want to hear.
Do
I
you,
want you to be succinct.
do you want them timed?
That's a bit much, but I think overall, we're gonna get to 30 minutes, and then we're moving on to the next candidate. And it's about internal clock for them.
So we can tell them that ahead of time.
No, I think you have to tell them ahead of time, but
Yeah. All right, so we'll give people 30 minutes. And I guess I can roughly tell people you're running over. So you've got 5 questions and 10 minutes left. So use your time, remaining time wisely. Is that what you would recommend?
yeah, that's how it goes.
Okay. And give them a final statement if there's time remaining?
Yes, if they have any questions of us too.
Do we want to give them that opportunity?
It's
Have
an
we done
interview.
that before?
No.
No? Okay.
I do like Don's suggestion that we let them have a closing statement, and I think generally at that time you say something along the lines of, you can have a closing statement, or if you want to go back and revisit a question, but that counts as towards the 30 minutes total. So if they go to 30 minutes before we get there, they've used that up. But if they if they manage their time well and hold to 3 minutes a question, then they have 6 minutes to sort of go back. Do we give them the questions in advance? I guess they'll see them if they look at tonight's agenda, right?
Yeah.
They'll be prepared.
So, yeah.
They're going to be posted with the special board meeting agenda.
Perfect. So, yeah.
I do, it does seem like an odd practice to me. Do we know, do other districts do this, where you publish your interview questions to board members? I don't know, Member Patch, you've worked in other districts. Have you?
The only thing we know is that John Sugiyama did, and we believe he did in his previous district, so. But I don't know beyond that. I'm not sure.
Seems like an odd, when I was being, going through the process, I thought it was odd then. But
Yeah.
great for me. but-
Yeah. No, I think we're not looking to trick anybody or,
Mhm.
it's not I don't know. I think it's a fine practice. I've gone to interviews where I've had the questions in advance for jobs, and I've had it, and I also feel like if you're going in for an interview, you should know what you're going to be asked, even if you haven't seen the question. So I don't know. I don't find it odd. And yes, other districts do it that way. So. Other
Okay.
districts don't quite have the turnover we do, though.
Okay. Well, I think that any public comment on this item? Hearing none, I think we've got our interview question set up and procedure. We'll give people 30 minutes. We'll tell them there are 8 questions. We have approximately 3 minutes per question, but we will cut them off after, and a closing statement if there's time left. Or they can go back over their answers. But either way, we'll cut them off after 30 minutes. All right, that is item 7.9, and then we're on to our last action discussion item, which is determining which of the candidates we would like to interview. Any questions on this item?
They all met with the same, they were submitted prior to the deadline?
Let me just ask if there's any.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were they submitted
ahead.
prior to the deadline?
They were. We had a little bit of confusion. I had stated, at least in one board meeting, that it was by the end of business day. I think we had posted 4 p.m. We had one come in, I believe, at 4:50 p.m., but it was still before the end of business day, business time. I have a question. Well, I'm not sure how to say this, but to say it, I noticed one of the applicants did not list their current, well, which I believe is their current personal relationship with current members of the board. Do we, or is the board wanting to hear all applicants, or do you want any, is there any review of these? I'm not experienced enough in this process to know does anything disqualify applicants from, from appearing before the board. And it's fine if you want to see everybody. I just wasn't sure if that was accurate or honest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know the.
Maybe we'd leave it.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to have a discussion of who we want to see, and just, that can be raised if that's of concern to someone. As part of that discussion, let me just open it up for public comment, see if there's any public comment. Seeing there's none, let's go into the discussion. There are 5 candidates. Are there, I guess the question is, should we interview everyone, or are there candidates that people think we should exclude from that we don't need to interview?
I'm okay with hearing from all 5, personally.
Yeah, I frankly appreciate that Brian Donahue has applied, but I think his record of behavior is such that he's indicated to me he would not be a good board member, that he has not exhibited the ability to discuss facts objectively. He has a very opinionated agenda approach, which is fine as a commentator. But I think most of his commentary has not been objective, balanced, and he does not exhibit the ability to work well on a team. So I think there's I don't see much productive use of our time interviewing Brian Donahue. There are other people in the pool, for example, Brian Carver, who I have not always agreed with, but I'm. Mm-hmm. He's a very thoughtful person, and has some, is balanced in his comments and thoughtful when he's come before us. I absolutely am interested in talking to Brian Carver. I think he would be worth having us bring in. So I would bring in the 4.
I would agree with you on agree is too strong of a word. I think you're right about Donahue and productive use of our time. I see him a little bit differently, but I don't think he would make a good board member. I have told him as much. So I agree with you on that one. And also I would add on, I think Ken has a lot to contribute and has been a stalwart of Emory politics, but I think his day, he serves a different role at this point in his career, and I think that's a good role for Ken as well, and I don't know that having him come up and interview would be any more productive than having Donahue up. And so if I were to exclude, I agree with the Donahue one, and I would also think Ken might be another one we want to not include. So.
Specifically to Brian Donahue, I personally would find it beneficial to my working relationship with him as a parent to hear his answers on those interview questions. I don't necessarily think that he and the board could work successfully and what's the word? Mommy brain can't think of it.
Productively?
Productively, but there's another word that I can't think of. But I feel that a lot of the interaction that Brian Donahue and the board has had has been in limited and tense situations, and I think a sit down and giving him the opportunity to answer those questions, I feel like it would enlighten me as to some of where his thought processes and comments come from. So personally, I am open to interviewing Brian Donahue to gain that understanding.
I should just share with the board that Mr. Donahue has alluded to staff that he plans on taking advantage of this time. So you might want to just know that information.
Yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
the spirit that's offered in, and I would invite you to take the list of questions and talk to Mr. Donahue with them, but I think it would be no more productive. We wouldn't really hear from him, honest, direct answers. That he wants audience and spectacle, and he's going to be as off topic as he is when he comes up in half of his public comments. So I don't think it's a good use of our time.
I was going the other direction with that. I had this image of him not being invited to interview, and at every public comment, taking 3 minutes to answer each of the questions.
Oh, well, that's fine. That's fine if he wants it.
Poetically.
But I have to
So-
add to Joy's comments or notes. He went through the process, or all the candidates went through the process of taking time to fill out the application. And I think it's our duty as recipients of this information to respect their time and their efforts. I wouldn't have no hesitation of having any or all of them interviewed.
And it'd be one thing if we had 30 people apply, but we didn't. And he is a parent in the district, and he is trying to do what he thinks is best for his baby. And I understand that I might not agree with what he thinks is best, but I'm willing to sit down and hear him out as a parent of the district. Again, I don't think that it would be a good fit, and I don't think that we could work together as a unit and be productive. But I do think he's earned a moment to talk, and he's applied, and I think we should hear him out.
Well, again, yeah, I don't know that he's earned 30 minutes of truth-telling, and he spent about 3 minutes filling out the application because it was the thinnest of all of them, and did not exhibit. I thought it was an opportunity to start to tell us what he really would do, and what he thinks that what community or business activities has he been part of that would help inform us. Lots. That was, this, what do you believe should be the role of school board members to tell the truth to citizens? That's, I don't know. I just. I would be happy to have a real conversation with Brian Donahue, but 30 minutes of spectacle, I don't think it's a good use of our time. So, Member Bukowski, I mean, that's an interesting suggestion. I mean, our point, we've interviewed Member Bukowski before.
Yeah.
And gave him serious consideration, and I think he's served the community well. I don't, so I feel like we've given him an opportunity, and he's kind of borderline for me. So I could support that as well if others were interested, but I would probably include him.
So, in the interest of time, one thing I'll say, Donnie, you did well on his app was brevity. Do we need to vote to include or vote to exclude? Because I think the way we frame that, if we're deadlocked on Donahue, if we're voting to include, you would need 3 votes to get in versus 3 votes to get out. So I don't know.
No, I think
procedurally.
it seems that that it's 3 to include.
3 to include.
Who are we moving forward with?
Yeah.
And that would take a majority.
Because I think we have consensus on the other 3 candidates. And so we could move them forward and then sort of decide if we want to do with the other 2. And to be specific, it's Carver, I forget Gowdy's last name. Sanchez. And then Collins. Thank you. So I think that.
So, are you making a motion on those?
So
3?
I move. I guess we move those 3 forward, and then we can vote individually on the other 2.
I'll second.
Okay, let's have a roll call on those 3.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes. And then, so do we have a motion on, to move Donahue forward?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Roll call?
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
I usually go last on these. I'm going to say no.
President Affelt?
No.
Now what?
So do we have a motion on,
I'll move
Ken
on
Buka-
Bukowski.
you'll move to include Bukowski?
Well, I'll move for the vote, right?
Oh,
That doesn't force me to vote yes.
I thought you need to move to,
I'll second it.
oh, I see. Yeah, you're right.
I need to back up.
The motion to vote for Ken
Yes.
Pats,
Pats.
and then seconded by Don.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to expedite
Yeah,
things here.
Yeah, no, it was good.
So-
You're right, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay, roll call on Bukowski.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member Pats?
I'm going to say no.
President Affelt?
I'm going to say yes. Okay, well, that determines our list of candidates.
Well, what happens with Don?
For
He's out.
He did, the motion did not carry.
2-2.
Sorry.
2-2, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, the motion did not carry.
He's out. He's out, and I'm off his Christmas card list.
All right, we are on to board reports and announcements. Are there any board reports and announcements? Member Merriam?
Yes, this announcement or this report or whatever it is directed at Member Pats. I do want to apologize for my action on the November 16th board meeting, and I hope that I can work with you and the board in common terms and just in a positive direction.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Other board reports or announcements? Okay, hearing none. Calendar review?
Sure. There is a special meeting, first I should say, actually, there's a holiday, no school for students on Monday for Martin Luther King, for the Martin Luther King holiday, excuse me. We have a special meeting of the Board of Trustees to meet with our applicants for the board vacancy on January 21st at 6 p.m. We have a normal regularly scheduled board meeting on January 27th, and we have a dismissal hearing on February 1st and 2nd from 6 to 10 p.m.
And that's closed session,
Uh,
the dismissal hearing?
I believe it is closed session. Yes.
Okay. All right. Speaking of closed session, we are now going to retire to closed session, so the...
Oh, may I just make one final
Yes,
comment?
of course.
I just want to say thank you to all the members of the board tonight, because I really do appreciate the way we worked through everything. It was a long agenda, and I thought everyone worked a pretty positive manner, and it's a great team, so thank you.
All right, thank you for that.
With baby.
With baby.
That's pretty good.
All right, we're returning to closed session at 9:15.